Thank you for staying with us. As I said before the break, education sector in every nation, it is one that everyone should care about, should pay attention. And there are people that have been started with the responsibility of making sure this is done the right way. We have where we are coming from as a nation, and we have where we are right now, and where we are supposed to be. And that is why the federal government of Nigeria, a few days ago, announced the completion of a comprehensive review of the national curriculum for basic, senior secondary, and technical education. The new framework is designed to reduce content overload, improve learning outcomes, and ensure Nigerian students are equipped with skills relevant to today's global demands. And according to his press statement signed by Borio Wolf Folasha, the Director of Press and Public Relations of the Federal Ministry of Education, the announcement was made on behalf of the Honorable Minister of Education, Dr. Maruf Tunji Alausa. And they explained that the review was carried out in collaboration with key agencies, including the Nigerian Educational Research and Development Council, Universal Basic Education Commission, UBEC, National Senior Secondary Education Commission, NSSEC, and the National Board for Technical Education, NBTE. And so many things were said. From primary 1 to 3, pupils will now take between 9 and 10 subjects. 9 and 10 subjects. Primary 4 to 6, pupils will be required to take 10 to 12 subjects. Junior secondary school students will take 12 to 14 subjects, and senior secondary school students will take 8 to 9 subjects, and technical school students will take 9 to 11 subjects. And the review process was not only about streamlining subjects, but also about improving content to allow for deeper learning. So much has been said about that. And they said, that's the Minister of Education, described the new curriculum in his word as future ready. We'll look into the content and the details of these new development, the course of the program. This morning, we have with us an educationist and the Chief Executive Officer of Educare. Educare is a leading education technology platform in Africa, and they have served more than 1 million students and hundreds of thousands of parents. We have Alex Onyia with us this morning. Good morning, Alex. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here today.
All right, straight to it. What do you make of these new developments that the Ministry of Education has called being future ready? They are future ready, streamlining some of the current ones that we have, the number of subjects that will be taken by pupils and students, and adding more to it, having a robust curriculum that we make up to par with all the nations of the world, and which has been termed futuristic. And the future is not that kind of future. They are saying we are future ready. Your assessment of the new development?
Okay, I'd like to say firstly that the intent is very good. I mean, part of the things that you notice is optimizing the subjects. Like the JSA, primary 1 to 3 are probably doing between 9 to 10 subjects and the rest. So it's a lot more interesting. Secondly, coding is now being introduced from primary 1 to SS3, right? And then you can see that every child is now mandated to learn skills. So these are some of the key things that are actually quite interesting that appears to be future ready in terms of the intent. In terms of the curriculum itself, I don't think the curriculum is actually ready. Because from the last information I got, that the states are still trying to normalize. And if you go to any RDC website, you can't find any single information regarding the new curriculum. And from what I also heard, that they are meant to start implementation from this September.
Yeah.
And I don't even know who the stakeholders that even planned that curriculum. I don't even know who were consulted. Nobody has that information publicly. So like I said, the intent is good. The plan, we don't know. And also the execution is also where we're going to have a very strong bottleneck. The teachers are going to deliver it. Who are they? How prepared are they? Are they trained? So a lot of all these things are possible gaps that we are going to encounter. But the intent for me is good. And if everything is done well, then we're going to have the fastest development ever in the nation.
All right, Mr. Onyia. This, like you said, is a good development. The world is tilting towards AI and robotics. Even just this morning, I saw a BBC report, the First Lady of the US, Melania Trump, talking about it, saying the robots are here and they have to prepare for it. The children have to be trained for it. Now, coming to Nigeria, like you said, this is a new development, which is a good initiative, it's a good policy, but how prepared are we? We cannot overemphasize the importance of AI and robotics now to be included in our curriculum. But you actually started, you stated the first one because I was going to ask you about it and you mentioned it, talking about the teachers who are going to train these pupils, these students, primary school pupils and secondary school students on AI and robotics. Who are the teachers? Do we have the manpower? That's number one. So I'd like you to address just quite three of the challenges quickly. The first one is the manpower. Do we have the manpower, the teachers to train them? Do we have people who are well trained, who are in the education sector right now to carry out, to implement this policy? That's number one. Number two, Mr. Onyia, let's talk about infrastructure. Our schools, do we have the infrastructure? Do we have computer labs? Do we have the laboratories to train them? Do we have electricity? Let's even start from the basic one, Mr. Onyia. Electricity. Do we have adequate electricity to power this? Because you can't talk about innovation, you can talk about AI, you can't talk about robotics without electricity. Absolutely not. So do we have the infrastructure? Talking about the computer labs, the computers, the electricity. And finally, I also like you to address this. How about budgeting? What are we budgeting for education? Do we have the funds? From 2015 to 2025, our budget for education fell from 10.75% to 5.47% in Nigeria, whereas UNESCO recommends 15 to 20%. So we are far behind, way behind. So how ready do you think we are in Nigeria as far as this initiative is concerned?
Okay, so I'll go to the surface and I'll go back a little bit to the top. From the teacher's point, we're absolutely not ready. If you look at the curriculum for the teacher training colleges and their institutes of learning, you see that we're backward, right? So for the teacher's point, we're completely not ready. For the infrastructure point, we're also not ready. I mean, a lot of schools, you see dilapidated classrooms, leaking roofs. We're not even talking, I mean, school of 400 children, only 3 teachers, and teachers don't even come. So a lot of these things, the remuneration part, we are not even ready at all. So, but the point is this: do we have the funds? As a country, we do have the funds. Do we have the political will? We don't have it yet. But I think if we can deploy strongly the political will to actually transform education, then you can see that we will have the right investments to make. And automatically, we can now have a strong focus on building our teacher training institutes, investing heavily in infrastructure, computers. Do we have connectivity now? There is connectivity now, like I always tell schools. Starlink is available and it gives the same speed everywhere in the country. If you can invest in acquiring this hardware, you can easily distribute connectivity much faster than ever before. So it is about the will. So if you have the will, we can make the right investment. So at this point, we are completely not ready. Can we be ready within the next 6 months? If we choose to, we will be so much ready for that.
All right. Now, I'm not sure you have answered all the questions, but maybe you can add this, that in that press release from the Federal Ministry of Education, the bold headline there, screaming lighter load, stronger minds. Federal government overhauls curriculum for a smarter generation. Lighter load, stronger minds. Federal government overhauls curriculum for a smarter generation. And it was dated September 3rd, 2025. And they talked about the landmark decision because you asked about if critical stakeholders were consulted before the Ministry of Education came public with this information. They said the landmark decision followed wide consultations with the Nigerian Educational Research and Development Council, NERDC, with WAEC, and that's the document you have on your screen there. WAEC, NECO, MBTE, NAPTEP, and other critical stakeholders in curriculum design and assessment. So let's talk about that. Are there any more critical stakeholders that you will have wanted to be part of this planning that are not there beyond those that have been listed, and whose work you think will have made a difference?
There are a lot of, yeah, firstly, you made an announcement that the curriculum has been redesigned and launched. And up till today, nobody can get their whole hands on what is being done. So there's no even base of criticism. There's no base of analysis. There's no base of review. You said, I mean, you know, Nigeria, is it not the same Nigeria that an airline was launched and then they realized that it was fraud? I'm not saying this is fraud, but basically what I'm basically saying is, if you announce publicly that you've launched and announced a new curriculum, there should be a way that we should be able to see it. We should be able to review it independently. We should be able to analyze it. So there is nowhere, even on any RDC website, you can't find any single thing. The stakeholders that were reviewed, you wrote it on paper that they were consulted. There is no evidence to that. There was no the public dialogue to that, nothing. So I'm very optimistic. I genuinely want this thing to work, because I know if this is done well, we're going to have the fastest and the best development ever.
Alex,
but I just don't want it to be like the normal Nigerian thing.
If I may, Alex, you talked about the plan and all of those things. It's now a public document, at least I have it, many persons have it. And they talked about the streamlining and the classes that are involved, primary 1 to 3, 13.
That is not the curriculum. That is not the curriculum.
So exactly my point. When you say planning, how do you mean planning?
Sorry, I don't get your question. Can you repeat it?
Okay,
again,
when
please?
you said planning, that, you know, these information are not up on the website of some of the agencies and all of those things, I'm saying they have run, you know, this is what we are going to do, streamlining some of the subject from primary classes, secondary classes, technical education classes, and they have marked the date. So I want to know that thing that you say is missing, that is not.
I can generate that information you have in less than 2 minutes with ChatGPT. That's not even the problem. The point is the core content of the curriculum. You talked about coding from primary 1 to this. Let's even see the progression. Let's even see the core content, because at the end of the day, you've already developed a plan. You can just prompt an AI, and this is what I want it to give you something even better than this. But the point is, let's now see the content, and let's now see how you plan to execute it.
All right.
So that is what we need to see, because we can't start criticizing what you just brought out now. Anybody can do it. Let's see exactly what the content is. Let's see the practicability of what you are trying to introduce.
All right, Ms. Onyia, I get your points clearly. So you believe that this bold leap that the federal government is making might just be a policy announcement without any groundwork?
Yes, I strongly believe that. But like I said earlier, I'm very optimistic. It's something I've always wanted to happen. If at the end of the day this actually becomes true, I'll be one of the most happy people ever.
All right, Mr. Onyia. So going back to the previous questions I asked you, some of the challenges we might face, very genuine challenges. You talked about Starlinks, the fact that we can easily have, you know, connection and all that. But unfortunately, even if we do that, we do not address electricity. It will still be like, how do I describe that?
So there's already solar technology. You know, we are not in 1990, right?
Yeah.
We're not even in 1985.
But do we have it installed in the schools? That's a question.
They can invest, the government, they have enough funds. They can invest in this. They can even introduce subsidies for these schools. They can invest in these things.
All right.
What does it cost to set up a solar system that can power 500 computers?
Okay, so the government should invest.
It's about the willingness to make the investment.
All right.
How much does it cost them to have a meeting? The cost of a meeting may be between 50 to 100 million. Do you know how many solar systems is to deploy in schools? Just to have a policy meeting that probably produces nothing.
All right, Mr. Onyia. So you are saying it's all about the will and the intent to do it. So, which brings us back to budgeting. That's where the problem is. Like I said before, between 2015 and 2025, in the space of 10 years, Budget for education dropped from 10.75% to 5.47%, which is very poor compared to UNESCO recommendation, like I said before, of 15 to 20%. So you have said it, Mr. Onyia, that we have the funds, but the government should do better by allocating funds. I'd like you to respond to that, but after this break, we'll do for a break now. When we return, I'd like you to respond to that.
Reviewed. This is Olumere. This is Osun Tourism, beyond impossibilities.
Thank you for staying with us. This is Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. We are live on Star Times channel 190, and of course on YouTube at Western Spring TV NG, and on Facebook, Western Spring Television. This morning, we are taking a critical look at Nigeria's education sector as the federal government has unveiled a new curriculum for the students, both for primary school pupils and for secondary school students. And join us live in the studios right now for this conversation. We have architect Goke Omigbodun, a proprietor and public affairs analyst. Thank you, architect, for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Femi.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. And of course, we still have Mr. Alex Onyia, CEO of Educare, with us. Thank you, Mr. Alex, for staying with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Mr. Onyia, before we went on that break, I was asking you, we were talking about the challenges we are facing in the education sector in Nigeria, and I was talking about budgeting funds. You talked about the funds. You said, fine, we have the funds in Nigeria, but let's take a critical look at the budget. I mentioned the fact that budget for education dropped from 10.75% from 2015 to 5.47% in 2025. Whereas UNESCO is recommending 15 to 20% of the budget to be given to education. So in your own opinion, Mr. Alex, where do you think the disconnect is right here? Do you really see the federal government as willing to push up the budget for education at this point, since they're trying to unveil a new curriculum for schools in Nigeria?
Thank you. So I have three major concerns with that. Firstly, when a budget is being apportioned for education, right, the actual release is usually max of 25%. That's the actual fund that they actually get. So you can hear that for instance, hypothetically, they budgeted 1 billion. The actual amount that they will get for execution is actually 250 million.
Hold on, Mr. Onyia. Are you saying that for whatever is being budgeted for education, they don't release more than 25% to the sector?
They don't.
Is that verifiable, Mr. Onyia?
You can go and if anybody can dispute. If you have a vehicle, they can prove it. This is what I'm telling you now. I've actually engaged with a lot of past commissioners for education, and because this is exactly the same thing they've always complained about. Definitely because they work for the government, they can't publicly come and say it.
Mr. Onyia, because this is quite, Mr. Onyia, this is quite alarming. If we have only 5.4% for education, and you are still telling me that out of that 5.4%, out of that 5.47%, only 25% still gets to the sector. That is quite alarming.
Yes, that is quite alarming. And secondly, even the 25% that gets to the sector, another thing is, what did they actually do with it? Because the truth of the matter is, even with that 25% that is very small, if they actually use it properly, you will still see the visible change. So even in that 25%, they still have to embezzle some again. That is even the people they release it to. So the corruption in the system makes it extremely difficult for a lot of these things to take place. So that's why increasing budget is very important, right? Releasing the funds is even more important, and utilizing the funds is way more important than every other thing. So you see that we have agencies like UBEC, SUPEP. At the end of the day, our education system keep getting worse year after year. And we keep apportioning funds to these agencies. So you ask yourself, what are they doing with those funds?
All right. Alex, you have just talked about, the issue of funding not being enough, just like Daniel raised the question. And I even said the budget performance for that sector is abysmal, to say the least. I will come to you, but we have, Architect Gokomi Bodun here. I need your impression as well. The government of Nigeria is saying the curriculum that has been developed now determines being future ready. And so they talked about the streamlining of subject from the primary to the secondary, to these technical schools, these primary 1 to do this, primary 2 to do this, and all of those things. And of course, introduction of a technologically driven subject, because they said we are future ready. And so we have been looking at the intent of the government, the workability of this particular curriculum, new curriculum, and the dimension in which we are right now. You are a proprietor, you are a stakeholder, and of course, you're a public affairs analyst, and you're a father as well. So I need your assessment of this new development.
Thank you very much. I'll give the assessment shortly, but let me just start off from the last discussion that you were having with the other guests, having to do with the budget, expectations that ordinarily UNESCO would say budget should have for education between 15 and 20%, and we have gradually gone from 10% to 5%. I hope we don't end up with 0 or 1%. And you are wondering what is going to happen about it. We'll have to keep on making noise about it so that something can change.
Right.
I keep on referring to Section 18.3 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that makes provision actually that as far as it be possible, and I know it is possible in Nigeria, we should have free education up to the university level. It is a constitutional thing. It is just that clause, as far as possible, that is put there. But we know it is possible because we know all of the funds that are being used for other purposes that they should not be spending our funds on. So money should be taken back to education.
You're saying we can do what Germany is doing, because up to tertiary level, education is free.
It is in your constitution. I have just cited the portion of the constitution that says that. And that is what we should follow. And again, I've also referred severally to something that Obafemi Awolowo wrote in his Strategies and Tactics of the People's Republic. He wrote that book in 1970, and I deliberately got it stuck into my head that it's on page 57 that he wrote there that it is cruel of any government in Africa to fathom issues of education loans when in actual fact grants should be made enough for people to have solid education. He used the word cruel. So I don't know. So if our federal government today is doing exactly that, perhaps Obafemi Awolowo, as far back as 1970, was projecting that we will have a government that will be cruel to the citizens in the year 2025. So let's now go back to the issue of the curriculum. So the essence of what I've just said is the government should not think they are doing us a favor with all this education loan. They are making life difficult ahead of time into the future for those that take those loans, or they are in fact just giving out grants to those who are lucky enough to take it who will never pay back. When in actual fact, funding should be general into education to give us free education according to Section 18.3 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, up to the first degree level. Now, let's go back to the issue of the curriculum. I think it's a beautiful thing. For the first time, this government is doing something beautiful in education, but again, it's being done in a wrong way.
Oh.
Now, you want something to start in September 2025, and you are bringing it out in September 2025. I was still in the office of the Ministry of Education of Osun State yesterday, and I've spoken with one or two directors of the ministry, even this morning. The moment you told me that I thought, let me update myself because I don't want to come on air and be talking what is not verifiable.
Right.
The Federal Ministry of Education has not communicated effectively with the Osun State Ministry of Education, according to reports that I have had. So how can the Osun State Ministry of Education relate to us teachers and proprietors on this thing? And it must start September this year.
New session.
Yes, and we're in September already.
Yeah.
Today is 5th of September. Many schools are starting next week. And so this is something, this beautiful idea ordinarily was initiated by former Minister of Education, Tahir Maman. So that was a long time for them to have had so many stakeholders, meetings with states, with private proprietors of schools. We have never been invited to any such meeting. I can say that boldly and authoritatively as a proprietor of a school. We have not been invited to any such meetings. So you just give us a handout of this is the next move. It will have to do with books, because new books have to be used relating to the new streamlining of the subjects and everything. So where are those books? Have they been published? Where were they published? Why are we as proprietors and other stakeholders in education not aware of such books? Good idea, but being done in a shoddy way. They ought to have either brought this out much earlier or just allow it to start off September 2026 so that we would have had enough time to study what it is that we are going into. I will say good idea because most of the things that they are talking about in this new curriculum are things that proprietors of private schools had always been involved in. They're talking about robotics and coding. It's only in public schools that you won't have that. You can't come to my school and not find, not only do we have robotics lab, AI lab, yes, we take children, I've taken children to Abuja to all, one of our children still won a competition about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So that is something that we have been into.
Architect.
Yes,
Architect.
I'm telling you
like you said,
there was a particular a competition that we had to go for, and we were not sure that the road was safe to go to Abuja. I lifted my children by air to Abuja for the robotics competition. This is about 2 years ago.
I'm quite, you saw the surprise. Yeah, you saw the surprise on my face. I'm quite impressed. Like you said, it's a good idea, but some Nigerians, some critics will say ideas are a dime a dollar. Okay, that it doesn't really matter. Just like Mr. Onyia just said right now. He said, it doesn't really matter that anyone can generate this same this template they gave us. I'm using ChatGPT within a few seconds. So it's not just about the idea.
Yes.
What work is being done. So do you see this also as just a policy statement with no groundwork? They've not really done their homework. They're just coming out to give us a policy statement.
Exactly what I have just told you. That we have not seen anything on ground to indicate.
Which means it's not really a good idea.
No,
if you look deeply,
good idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea for the for the nation,
idea,
exactly, but not well thought out.
Not well implemented thus far. And it is in the implementation that you will be able to know whether it was well thought of. So the thoughts are not in the open domain. The thoughts are in the heads of those that are bringing it out. But the manifestation will indicate it is workable. Yeah. It is absolutely workable.
If well planned.
Yes. Even right now, we can wobble and, you know, and still get it through if we have a determined government. Look, if I were to be in charge of education anywhere, whether in the state or in the, I will still work with this. I've learned, but everybody cannot be like me, and I'm not.
Yeah, well, you are in the private sector. You are doing it already. Yes. So the other time I meant to say
the issue for us in the private sector and everybody now is that the parents are now being careful. They don't even want to buy books anymore, and we have stocked books, okay, for our traditional approach and curricula.
For the next session.
For the next session. So if not for the fact that some of us always had our co-curricular activities, it is the core, C-O-R-E, that the ministry or anybody can breathe over our heads about. But the co-curricular, that is additional curricular activities, are those things that we put these new issues under before. Look, even for the secondary school, as I remember, let me just mention it, they are introducing what they call project work.
Yeah.
Anybody that passed through the olive branches schools for the past 20-something years will tell you he did what we call thematic studies. That is a project work. So it is just the thematic studies of the...
So it's not new to you?
It's not new to us, but it's new to the public school system.
Yeah. Let's go back to Alex. Now, our guest here, Architect Omibodun, has aligned almost 100% with your position to say to put out a curriculum or a plan. It's one thing, but the workability and the planning, the readiness of those that, you heard him say, even in the state here, the report is getting is that the proper communication has not been done to the federal government and the state government. Now, curriculum reviews in Nigeria are long overdue. Now, with what we have, the secondary school curriculum being used now was introduced in 2011 and had remained static until now. In 2024, former Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Maman, disclosed there were plans announced for new secondary school curriculum to be implemented by September of that year, noting that the previous review had been 12 years earlier. Now, this is where we are. Resumption will start, anytime from now. But do you think that with this beautiful plan, you have said the intent is fine and it's quite good, and that there is something that can still be done in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and it won't look like we are rushing it? It will look like, okay, give or take, we can still have something done, or you feel maybe the next best time should be next year. Your take on that?
Something done, this is the age of AI, something done can even be done in 1 week. But the point is, what should be done cannot even be done in the next 6 months. Because a lot of consultations, a lot of deliberations, a lot of all these things are very critical to whatever we're trying to do. So I like the fact that she has already taken a bold step. That's why we're having this conversation, right? One of the challenges we have is that many of the people in some places of positions are probably based on political choices, not based on qualification, right? I mean, if we had somebody that probably has a strong background in education management and maybe working with curriculums across different agencies, it could have been a lot easier and better because most likely they will understand how this should be done. However, for me, the intent is good and I love it. The practicability of what is being done, of course, we've not even seen what is being done. Like the other guest said, that even the Osun State has not even been properly communicated. So I can now imagine what is already happening in other states. So for September, for even this year, I don't even see the practicability. So, but are they going to bring out something? We may see something and then schools will start struggling with it. Remember, the big people of big concern here is the public schools. Most private schools in Nigeria have already, in some way or another, already have different kind of blends of curriculum that they work with. Public schools don't. So I think, and of course, public schools are the ones that have the big numbers. And that is actually where the core focus is.
All right, Mr. Onyia. Like you said before, it's not just about the idea. And the other time I meant to say ideas are a dime a dozen. So anyone can actually come up with the idea, but they need to do some, groundwork to make sure that it works. Now let's look at another concern here. You heard our guest in the studio, who is actually a proprietor, who said for him, he's in the private sector. He said it's not new to him. They've been doing robotics before, even right here in Osun State, which quite surprised me, if I must be sincere, that they've been doing it before, including their thematic studies and all that. Now, coming to you, Mr. Onyia, let's look at the public schools now, the public sector, as far as education is concerned in Nigeria. If this should be implemented, like you said, it will take time. It's not feasible. It can't start now, and it might not even be feasible for next year. And here's what I mean. Let's say, for instance, hypothetically, the budget for education in Nigeria is increased. It goes up for next year, that's for 2026. It will even take time for them to implement that budget, talking about budget implementation, and for them to release the funds, for the funds to get to the right sources and for it to be used for the right reasons. So it will take quite some time, which brings us back to those involved now, the pupils, the primary school pupils, and of course the secondary school students. In terms of additional costs, How do you think, Mr. Onyia, this will affect Nigerians, parents, and guardians in terms of additional cost of training for their children?
Ideally, for the public schools, I mean, you know, based on the UNESCO agreement, basic education should be free for all, right? Although we know that it's never free. Even the ones who claim theirs is free, they will still tell children to buy one or two things. So that 5,000-10,000 you introduce for a child every term is a lot of cost for them, right? So if the government, if the state government really want to do this, they have to actually make the right investment in getting some of these equipment, building new schools if they need to, building more labs, investing a lot in trainings. So the truth of the matter is, unfortunately, the poor always bear the brunt. So whether it's going to be implemented in Osun, I don't even know. Whether it's going to be implemented in Enugu may decide to implement, Osun may decide not to. So there's always children who are going to bear the brunt. So it's actually, at this point, it's at the call of the government. But ideally, it's actually the call of the government, not the parent, especially for people in public schools, because their education needs to be completely free. They actually need to even be giving incentives to encourage them to come to school, because coming to school is strongly to the benefits of the society and the government.
Right. We are due for break in a few minutes, but, you know, let's expand the scope of this conversation, because we're taking a critical look at the educational sector. Talking about new development, we're having so many, and one of those is when the West African Examination Council, the Nigerian office, have said from the year 2026, they are going full CBT. And we are talking about workability this morning, visibility of these things, the challenges, and if actually we are there right now. A minute each before we go on this break. Alex, do you see that happening? And I'm asking you because I know you are fully involved. The last glitch we had, you were fully involved, the jam situation, and now 2026, why Nigerian office is saying they will go full CBT, drop the paper and pen type of education, examination. Do you see that happening?
Is it going to happen? Definitely it's going to happen. Are there going to be glitches? There will be a lot of glitches and issues. With the current systems I'm seeing already with WAEC, even WAEC, that their website is barely on. Most of the time when students want to do something serious, they're already struggling. So there will definitely be glitches. But is it going to happen? They will definitely do it. Hopefully, by the time they experience glitches, they should be very transparent and open about it. And they should also fix things very quickly. So one thing I've seen is, who are the vendors? Because sometimes we talk about glitches, we think it's just hardware. Most of the glitches start from the software. Who are the vendors? How did you pick them? So they probably give contract to a cousin or a relation, and they keep playing with data that affects destinies of people. Because, like, you need to know, WAEC is an achievement exam. WAEC is not like JAM. JAM is just a ranking exam. WAEC is an achievement exam, right? So whatever they want to do, they should ensure that it's watertight. They should run a lot of simulations and experiments, and they should work with credible vendors. You can tolerate JAM, write it again the next year. WAEC is completely different.
All right.
So I know they will definitely do it, but I can guarantee you that there will be a lot of glitches from all angles, even starting from the registration itself.
All right. I hope you are not being pessimistic there, but, you know, just speaking truth, your truth. I would take architect Omigbodun's position on that, because you are critical stakeholder as well. They are saying, pen and paper, drop it. We are going full-blown CBT, and they have been talking about the requirement for the centers, 250 computers, the size of the hall, and all of those things. But Nigerians will say, even with pen and paper, we are still having issues. Now that you want to go technological with the inner remote areas, are we able to do all of those? But that will be after now.